Off script, with jab on the mic. Every story, every stumble, every late night rewrite. Pull back the curtain, hear the real talk. Off script with Jarvis, jab on, let the conversation start.
Dude, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm great. Where are you at in the world?
You caught me in Nashville right now, actually. I'm at my Nashville spot, but I'll be back in LA soon.
Hell yeah. And Nashville is now home for you, right?
Yes and no. We've been
Okay.
splitting time. So, we still have a spot out in Toluca Lake, and I do a lot of my work out of LA, but we
Yeah.
got a house out here in like 2021.
It's so
And I was
sick.
able to set up the studio here to do the content and the music stuff.
Hell yeah. I think that was the last time I actually saw you was in Nashville.
That's right. And we went, you were playing Bridgestone with Tate, and then we
Yeah.
went to Bar Taco the next day for tacos.
Bro, that whole hang
That
was so much fun. Like, it was
was a
just
fun
great
day.
to hang with everybody. You, Zach, Maria, and like everybody came out, had a good time. It was such a
Zach
vibe.
was there. Shout out Zach Finsky.
My boy Z, the
He
legend.
he owes me a kayak trip out on the I think we're supposed to go boating in Laguna.
Dude, we just had we celebrated the 4th with Zach and a few of our other friends, and he's been trying to
Oh,
get us
awesome.
to go down to Laguna and OC for the longest time. He's like, just move down here. I'm like, it's so far.
I love
though.
it. Oh, I'm so down though to go frolic down there. We had to hang a couple months ago,
Okay.
back in like April or May. I was out for a while doing some shooting, and Zach hit me up. I went down to the OC. We just had like a beach day with him and Liza, and we were like, down there on the rocks in Laguna, there's like all sorts of
Yeah.
like wildlife and like crabs and stuff, and like
Mm-hmm.
it's all about it. I felt like we were like in the Crocodile Hunter, Steve
Exactly.
Irwin.
Zach is the man. Like, he just loves to be. Zach does everything I wouldn't do, but I appreciate that he does that.
Heard.
You know
You
what I
can
mean?
live
Like,
vicariously through him.
and he gets me in things that I typically wouldn't do, but I always enjoy doing with him. You know what I mean? Like, he's one of those guys. Like,
Absolutely.
I got somebody to let me use their boat, so we're gonna go on a boat. Zach, who did you finesse? In you know what I mean? I'm like, but he's one of those guys that really, if you hang around long enough, he will get you into really cool things that you wouldn't think of doing. And
He's got a great spirit of adventure that I admire. I love how he comes to Nashville. He's like getting up at jam night right away.
Yeah, immediately.
Shows up and he's like posting a story, and he's just got such a gift for like just talking to anyone, which, great life lesson. Like, amazing things happen when you simply talk to people.
That is a fact.
Yeah.
No, he's amazing.
He perfectly embodies that, and definitely someone that I value and appreciate spending time with, because he reminds you to like go for it.
Yes.
In your life. Like, he's one of those guys. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're an inspiration, bro.
Yes, shout out to Zach Fisk. Yeah, if y'all don't know who he is, y'all are missing out on a breath
I'm
of
surprised
fresh
he
air.
hasn't come on. He hasn't come on the pod.
He's scheduled. Yeah, he's
Okay,
he's
great.
scheduled for sure. And you've seen also thank you for being so flexible, man. My life has been crazy.
Of course. Yeah. No, I totally get it. You were out doing the thing.
Yeah, just trying to, provide for the fam. That's all. But dude, I wanted to
Looked
talk to
pretty
you,
sick.
man. What's that?
I said it looked pretty sick.
It was pretty cool. Yeah,
That's a sick way to provide.
very grateful for the opportunities that we're awarded in this life, man. But you, more specifically, is the person I wanted to talk to, because you've created a space for yourself that most people don't think about doing. And then, in my opinion, don't do it at the level that you've been able to achieve. And I'm so curious of why and how that even came about. So how did you get into the space of being primarily a content creator? And yes, you still do play out, you'll still tour and all that good stuff. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, your primary thing right now is content creation on guitar.
It certainly takes up the most of my time. Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly takes up the most of my time. I am, I'm a musician by trade, and a guitar, like my craft in music, gave me the opportunity and the ability to do something with content, and then kind of not intentionally, just kind of blossomed into this thing that demanded a lot more of me.
Yeah.
Right. and just kind of, it was this open door that at the time I was like, if I don't walk through this door right now and like try it, I'm going to regret it, because
Wow.
it felt like something that was, new and kind of like burgeoning, and like my, like older people didn't necessarily get it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the type of thing that you would want to chase, like when you find something where like your parents don't understand what you're doing, then like, okay, so that's the next thing then. Like that's going to
Right.
be the
Yeah.
thing that we'll look back on in like 10 or 20 years and be like, you were part of that, you rode that wave when it was happening. So,
Yeah.
yeah. You were asking specifically about kind of segueing from like touring or playing music full time to doing
Yeah. I mean,
content.
sure. And why go down that path besides no one else was really in those waters with you? Were you finding more traction there? Were you getting more notoriety there? Was it something that, even like myself, I've stepped into a lane recently that I didn't see myself going down, but I was like, oh, I'm kind of good at this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And it worked out. Like, what's your story with that? Like, why? How? What was that?
sure. Well, one of my favorite sayings is like, "Don't be afraid to surprise yourself."
Oh, that's
Uh,
good.
it's not mine. It's the poet Yusef Komunyakaa said that in an interview, and I like saw it in like English lit class in like 8th grade or something, and I was like, "Oh, and I love that." Um, I think I learned that, when you're very married to the ego and like the narrative you've built around yourself and the idea you
Sure.
have of like who you are and what you're supposed to do, and like, um, the things that maybe you imagine doing when you're younger, if you're too fixated on that, I think actually tend to miss some of the opportunities that life has to offer you. Um, and I was definitely feeling like, I mean, to be clear, like it was the pandemic, and I was at a point where I'd been in LA for a while. I had reached a point where I was able to sustain myself touring, as a sideman, and had done some really great runs, throughout like 2016 to 2019,
Yeah.
going from, club level up to arenas and stadiums, like
Yep.
fully realizing that part of the dream, and moving through that stage for the first time. And pretty much as soon as I was kind of moving from like touring with like, say, like a C-level artist to like B and A, I had like some opportunities that I had locked in for 2020, and within like a few weeks the pandemic happens and like everything's, canceled.
Yeah.
And um there was a lot of, it was very challenging, obviously, for a lot of us. And I'm speaking from a place of privilege and good fortune to have come out on the other end of COVID, better off,
Sure.
which is, is not the case for everyone. So I want to be clear about that. It's a very like challenging time for all of us. And the thing that, I realized was that the distractions of touring, and kind of riding that wave of success and everything, coupled with the disappointment of kind of losing a lot of those opportunities to COVID, um, you know, I really just had to focus on myself.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
Initially, like that took like a toll on my mental health.
Sure.
So in focusing on that, um, the content thing kind of like came along at a time when I wasn't actively pursuing that to have like material success. It wasn't like I had these dreams or these ideas or these expectations that this was going to become, another career path for me or like a big thing. It was an outlet, and it was something that I was doing along with the work that I was doing on myself at the time, kind of, rising to that challenge of like having to be alone with my thoughts for the first time since I
Yeah.
moved to LA to like chase that dream.
Yeah.
Um, and I think through doing that, I just became very, very grateful for the opportunity to use my gift, in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
Given how, disappointing and challenging it was to experience the loss, um, around the pandemic, and feeling really creatively bottled up, and not going from playing 5 nights a week for years, in front of tons of people and the camaraderie of the road, and I mean,
Yeah.
just like gone like that. And I think because I wasn't, forcing it or fixated on like the outcome, and I was focusing on my own health and well-being at the time too, it kind of took on a life of its own and then became something that happened like very naturally.
Yeah.
And when it got to the point where I kind of had to like decide if I was gonna, really commit to it, one, I just felt grateful for the opportunity to share what my knowledge and my experience in music and on tour, and being able to share that and find an audience and connect with people in a time when I think a lot of us feel very disconnected,
Yeah.
was really fulfilling. And, like I said, I saw that opportunity. I had to like kind of have like a, long, hard talk with myself in the sense that like I had to I had to accept the possibility that if I went like all in on this thing, I might be giving up something else. And the thing that I might be giving up was that narrative, that dream, that version of myself that I built up when I was a kid. That's like, I'm going to do this and like be in the band or like tour with the biggest artists and like, do that. If I had stayed married to that though, I wouldn't have pursued making content because it didn't fit with that necessarily. So I think, ultimately, I was fortunate to be able to maintain both and have one inform the other. But it was important, like for my personal growth, to kind of accept the risk and the possible consequences of like making a choice to pursue making content, and maybe turning down some other opportunities or however it shook out. And I think that's an important piece of growth, because I think consequence is what separates, your youth from your adulthood, in the sense of like when, making decisions that have consequences is necessary for growth, but also it's scary, it's scary. You have something you could be giving something up. So that's kind of what brought me from music into content.
I think that's dope, man. So pandemic, you got hit with all these opportunities and they were like, nope, sit down, right? Everybody got hit with that
Really
thing,
cool stuff too, man. Like,
right. Yeah. Everybody was,
sure
it was an insane time. But the thing I want to ask you about, and if you're willing to share, was the internal dialogue, right? Because you brought that up, and I think that's important because all musicians deal with that. Being a musician, a professional musician, it's in a roller coaster, right? You're super high, and you're doing the arenas, you're doing the stadiums, you're on tour. To all of a sudden, I don't know, my phone's gonna ring. And then for you, you had to make a decision, and you made a choice, but it wasn't an easy choice, I assume. So what was the internal dialogue like? Like, were you fighting with the dream of the childhood and giving that up? And what was that friction that ultimately got you to that point where you're like, you know what? I'm all in on me. So let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't bet on yourself, no one will,
Facts.
It's a great question. There's a lot of answers I feel like I could give, but I think the most important one is I'm going to reference a book that I was reading at the time called Courage is Calling. I don't know if you've ever read this.
No.
This book. It's by Ryan Holiday. He wrote like the Daily Stoic.
Okay. Yes.
He writes Stoic philosophy books, but
I have the Daily Stoic. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my therapist had like recommended this book to me. He's like, check this out. He gave me a copy. He had like a bunch in the back of his car in a box. He had like he bought like a case of these books. I think he was like giving them to all his clients.
He had stock in the book and everything.
Yeah. Maybe some ownership.
Right.
So he's like, yeah, like check this out. You might like it. And I read that book and I realized that like the courage is not proceeding in the absence of fear because you've like made your mind up and you feel like confident in the choice or whatever it is that you're doing. It's persisting in spite of fear, right? Like you're going to be afraid, like things will be scary. And I think we tend to think, well, if I feel, if I can overcome the fear, then like I know I must be on the right path. Like I've, how do I say this? If I can overcome or cast aside the fear, then I can feel confident that what I'm doing is the right thing. Sure. Versus like I have to simply take action in spite of fear. So at no point, I don't think at any point was I like fully confident. And I think that's
Okay.
important
That's
because
very.
I think self-doubt and like just doubt in general is like an unavoidable part of your journey and growth. Like you're going to have doubt. There's going to be times when you don't know for sure. And no amount of introspection or meditation or prayer, whatever your practice of self-reflection
Yep.
is, may necessarily totally address those qualms. And you have to just take action. You have to make, like I said, like you have to make decisions of consequence,
Yep.
even if you're not totally sure. And who knows what's on the other end, but that's kind of the exciting part of the adventure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of my internal dialogue at the time.
Got it. So reading the book really kind of reshaped your own philosophy attached to your ideology.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's
I
incredible.
tend to like philosophy. I tend to like reading, and those things impact me like very, very deeply.
Yeah.
So I feel like the book really helped me just understand what was required of me to have maybe, kind of the life that I wanted, and the challenges that would be associated with that, and the courage that it would require.
Sure.
And it was kind of like totally the opposite of what I had been what I had been gravitating toward previously, which was like feeling comfortable, feeling confident, feeling secure,
Yeah.
and mistaking that for certainty versus embracing the doubt, embracing the fear, embracing the unexpected and the
Yeah.
possibility that comes with that. But you can't have one without the other, and that's
Yes.
the scary part.
Dude, that's
Or else
so
everyone
dope.
would have exactly everything they want in life all the time.
Right. And I think that's a very fair point, and something that I've seen musicians struggle with, and personally as well, right?
Mhm.
We get the gig, we get the relationship, we get the resources, we get the endorsements, and we're like, oh, I made it. And then all of a sudden you're like, this isn't the life that I thought. Right. And then you just brought this up, which is what I want to ask you. You said this really wasn't the life, or you thought about what the lifestyle you want to live, right? What kind of life do you want to have? What did you land
Yeah.
on?
See, that's a good question. I
Yeah.
don't even know if I know now. I
That's
think,
honest. Yes.
I definitely got close, I think, to what I was seeking at the time, having a multitude of creative outlets that I could use to support myself and family. That
Sure.
would be that's great, and it's kind of what I was seeking at the time. But yeah, I think it's always evolving and it's always changing.
Yep.
And I think again that's part of it. Like the certainty is kind of an illusion. I think also, I've struggled with OCD throughout my life, and done quite a bit of work there, and like, mindfulness work and workbooks and therapy.
Sure.
And kind of one of the things that was like a good exposure for me, and like working with the OCD was like, putting myself in these situations that were uncomfortable, uncertain, and kind of seeing, the good that came from that stuff, whether it was personal growth, professional growth, financial growth, spiritual growth, like the outcomes. Like I said, don't be afraid to surprise yourself. It's like when I was living in my very, OCD world, kind of stuck on the narrative of like, this is who Dre DiMura is. I made my mind up when I was 14 that like, I'm going to be Slash, and,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right. Then like, I feel, a lot of things would have slipped through my fingers. And, sometimes, the results when you go through these uncomfortable experiences are, better than what you could have imagined in your like puny imagination. I started to
Yeah.
find that like the outcomes were surprising me, and that was being reinforced as like, positive reinforcement of like, hey, I'm not acquiescing to this urge to have certainty, security, to, and therefore I'm like creating opportunities in my life for things to happen that would not have happened otherwise if I had, tried to keep this tight vice grip of control on everything in my personal life and my career. Becoming comfortable with uncomfortability is the key.
The David Goggins saying, "Get comfortable being uncomfortable, man."
Yeah,
it's brilliant, and the fact that you've done a lot of work and you've accepted that the uncertainty is the way to go. And that's very challenging for not just musicians, but people in general, right? We get to this place of we work our 9 to 5, or we get to this place and we're like, okay, this is the comfort. This is familiar. And that's really what we're attached to, that control and familiarity.
yeah,
But the lessons that really push us to evolve are on the other side of that familiarity, when you just don't know what
absolutely.
the heck is about to happen. And you're like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to take a risk here. And somehow we seem to figure it out. There's
Yeah,
usually not many times where you just go down in flames. And if you do, whatever, no one has it figured out.
whatever. Yeah, whatever. Again, also failure is a part of that. Like failure is great. You can't all be winning all the time, no matter what that rapper said. Um,
That's so true, though. Dude, I think
but
that's amazing. So if you could, and this is something that a lot of people struggle with too, you talked about your OCD. What type of OCD did you have? Because I know there's different realms, and I just recently started digesting more of what that is, because I was working with an artist, and this artist was talking about them having it. So could you, like, what is your type of OCD? Because what I'm understanding is it doesn't really go away. You just learn how to manage it a little bit better, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
essentially, yeah, yeah, and
Right.
it exists on a spectrum. Like nobody has just one type of OCD. You would have, maybe more of a concentration of like certain OCD tendencies over others. I watched a video the other day that was like a great example of like illustrating OCD, and like an OCD brain versus a non-OCD brain is like,
Okay.
you're walking across a bridge and, you have the intrusive thought of like, ooh, I'm high up. Like, what if I jumped, And a
Yeah.
non-OCD brain is going to be like, oh, that's like, oh, what a funny thought. Or like, maybe that's a weird thought. And then you like just move on. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And go about your day. No big deal. The OCD brain is going to have that thought. And then it's going to go, wait, does that mean I want to kill myself? No, I don't want to kill myself. No, I'm happy with my life. But wait, is there something I'm unhappy about? And that's why I had that thought. And wait, maybe, okay, I need to look this up. And then you look it up and then you're okay, but but then it says that it might be a symptom of this thing, which means that, wait, is there something wrong with that? And do I need to go to a doctor and get a check? It's like, great example of like the rumination that would happen in the OCD brain versus like a neurotypical brain.
Sure.
And for me, my OCD tendencies were very much around like completionist, perfectionism, just right OCD, right? Like needing things to be a certain way in order to do other things.
Mm.
Kind of having the obsession over being able to create a perfect set of circumstances or a perfect environment for me to be able to do the next thing. It's called like and then thinking.
Okay.
Like I'd go into therapy, I'd be like, and if only like, I really want to do this, but like, I feel like I need this first. And if only I had this and I could like make sure these things were like this way, then I'll be able to like throw myself into making that album.
Right.
And it's like, no, make the damn album, you know?
Right. Right.
Album. Like, yeah, like my guitar needs a setup, but that's not going to stop me. I have this other outstanding project that I need to finish, but like, I need to put some time into this today, or like, it could be, big things, little things. But I think ultimately where it started to hold me back is that it's about feeling okay, right? Like
Okay.
that's, as human beings, we want to feel secure, we want to feel loved, we want to feel comfortable, we
Yeah.
want to, all of those things. And through OCD, you're able to self-soothe and regulate uncomfortability through the behavior. So if I felt like I wasn't achieving what I needed to as on my instrument, or if I felt like I wasn't getting the type of opportunities that I felt like I deserved or that I desired, as a musician or as a creator or what have you, I could soothe those feelings through the OCD behavior. So, ruminating on little things, small details, things that probably weren't necessarily going to help me advance any of my actual career goals or my craft, but made me feel good in the moment. So like,
Sure.
a great example would be like, if I felt like I wasn't getting called enough, my OCD behavior would be to start like, scrolling and like looking at everyone I knew who was getting called and like maybe DMing some people or whatever versus like, working on my craft or just going out to jam night and like hanging with my buds and like talking about music or just like kicking it, like building a
Sure.
community that way or like whatever. So, getting fixated on little details and things that make you feel like you're making progress or you're creating the circumstances you need to succeed, but they tend to just be distractions to help you, avoid whatever uncomfortable feeling you're having, which is, I'm not getting called right now. I'd love to be on tour, or
Right.
I'm bummed that video didn't do well.
Sure.
So ultimately, all of that struggle is what led me to the stuff that we talked about previously of like having to do that self work and grow through that and start to embrace that stuff and learn from it,
Yeah.
and move through the discomfort. And in doing so, to answer your question about like it never goes away, you create positive reinforcements instead of negative reinforcements. So the negative reinforcements are like, if I kept doing the behavior, wasting my time or doing, silly, tedious things to try to make sure my studio was exactly perfect so I could hit record and like play
Right.
or whatever, right?
Right.
It's just a hypothetical example, but if I
But so
just
real.
continue to like, you know, um, push those things and avoid those feelings, you know, to answer your question, it doesn't ever go away. But by creating those positive reinforcements instead of continuing to do the negative behavior,
Yeah.
your brain, you're able to kind of reprogram your brain a bit to associate the other behavior with the reward. So you're actually
Got
being
it.
rewarded for exposing yourself to things that make you feel uncomfortable. You're being rewarded for doing, maybe the harder thing, the thing that doesn't give you that immediate gratification or like good feeling of like, now it's okay.
Yeah.
Having to take a risk, having to deal with failure, having to, make a tough decision or something like that. And ultimately it definitely becomes much easier to just like, live your life and experience joy and abundance in that.
Dude, that's so dope that you're doing that, man. And respect, true
Thank you.
respect for knocking that out. I think this kind of pivots me to my next question for you is you had to start, right? You didn't just get to this place of also you just crossed, if I saw correctly at the time, 80K on IG, which is
Oh,
amazing.
on Instagram. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, congrats on that. But you didn't start there, right? You didn't start with the recognition. You didn't start with the brand deals. You didn't start with the perfect content. You didn't start with the perfect lighting, the perfect cameras, the perfect guitar setup, the perfect train. You didn't start with that. And you didn't start with people noticing or giving a damn, right? But somehow you stuck with it. So what was that for you that inspired you to stick with it and was like, you know what? I'm going to go all in on this the way I can, do the best I can, and just really go on this path. So what was that?
Are you asking specifically about like my earlier journey, like in music and content, or like what
Yes, sir.
kind of talked about the tipping point you're
Right.
talking about before that?
Yeah, like
I see.
the beginning phases of it, right? Because you were
Yeah.
touring and
Mhm.
content correct me if I'm wrong, content was not the primary focus. Now it's
No, it
kinda
wasn't even part of my life, really.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think to kind of echo what I said before, and then I can elaborate a little bit. Like, um, the idea of like challenging the narrative, of like who I am and what I'm supposed to do. Um, is ultimately, I think, what like made me feel like I could take the leap and like try this new thing. Um, but I think people tend to think I'm a lot younger online, which is excellent. The skincare routine is working. Um, no, really, like there's a phenomenon that I've seen, where a lot of my audience like associates me with like 2021, 2022, starting on TikTok and doing content. And like, they don't know that I had a career before that. They don't know that I did, that I toured and that I did music and sync and that I was on TV and in films and like did any of that stuff before content. And to be honest, that other chapter gave me all of the skills that I needed and the knowledge that I was able to build my platform on, sharing my experience with people.
Wow. Okay.
But it was definitely, a grind. I mean, it's a grind, and relatively speaking, it's the entertainment business. Like, we're not, I'm not a heart surgeon or anything, so I'm like,
sure.
it's entertainment, but it's a struggle. It's tough. Like you were saying, like, you're getting the tours, you're getting the deals, whatever. And it's like ultimate highs, ultimate lows. And for me, I was struggling with waiting for permission, to do my thing, and like, I was feeling that with, when I moved to LA, I moved to LA to pursue doing session work and pursue touring. I had figured out that like Nuno Betancourt from the band Extreme was playing guitar for Rihanna. So I was like, oh, that's a job. Like that, I was doing the band thing in Jersey where I grew up. And I had done like, I was working semi-professionally, teaching lessons, like playing in bands and stuff. But like when I figured out that was like a career path, I was all in. I was like, that's what I want to do. Went out to LA. Initially in LA, I actually got work doing like on-camera work as a guitar player for like TV and movies.
Incredible.
And started to pick up like the touring work later my first year, and then like, ongoing after that. But what I started to realize after the kind of initial like high wore off of like, oh, I'm getting all these cool opportunities, and I just did this tour in Australia, and I was in this Nickelodeon show, and like all this amazing stuff, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
Is realizing that like, the minute that the shoot ends, I'm unemployed. Like I worked for you know what I mean? I'm like, I worked for 2 days. It was awesome. But like, I don't even have my next audition from my agent yet. The phone ain't ringing. I got nothing on the books. And it's like, back to, whatever supplemental odd jobs, teaching lessons, whatever you can do to like, get by. And I think there's like something beautiful about it. I think it's like an integral part of the journey. I'm not knocking it in any way.
Yeah.
But I think after doing it for like a few years, you're like, this ain't it. Like, there needs to be, there's something else that I'm craving. And it wasn't even necessarily just like more material success or like, consistency in that regard. It was literally, like I said, just like the chance to do my thing. Like, you realize that in entertainment and music and in television and film, in the arts, right? You're essentially always waiting for that call. You're waiting for permission. And I realized another book I read actually, by this author, Austin Kleon, called Show Your Work. And he has another book called Share Your Work. They're really good, like little coffee table books. He just encourages people to like, don't wait up, create every day. Like, even if it's for 20 minutes, just like make something, like exercise your craft, do your thing. And I realized, I was like, why is it that us as artists and musicians or actors or whatever, it's like, why don't we just do our thing every day? Like, if I were a carpenter, I would be like building something each day.
Yeah.
Right. Like, like a craftsperson, right? I would be like devoting my time to that. And like that, the beauty is in doing the craft. And I realized I got very caught up in the highfalutin, like the LA, like just that the point became the result. I got the tour. I got the endorsement. I booked the job. I got the call back.
Yes.
And I was so unhappy, and my mental health was so awful. Like,
and
I mean, what do you expect? It's like, it's not really, any kind of life. It's feast or famine. And I was fortunate in the pandemic to kind of realize that, like, okay, the tours come when they come, the sessions come when they come, the auditions come in, those opportunities come. That's great. But here's something that I can do every day. I can get up, I can source my topics, I can write my scripts, I can set up my equipment, plug in my guitar, make a video, post the video, and kind of have a craft now that I can practice consistently, and in doing so, like, feed my own creative soul. And fortunately was able to also find an audience and connect with other people around
Yeah.
that. But it ultimately came down to, not wanting to wait up for permission to be creative. That's,
To be you.
yeah,
Dude, that's so dope. And I hope people understand that too, is like our career is a lot of it. If you're a hired gun, is someone calling your phone, sending you an email, and using your words, permission to exercise what you do. But you've pivoted, and this is I have a very similar story of I got tired of feeling like my worth was attached to my phone ringing.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
inevitable because it kind of is, right? If your phone doesn't ring, you don't make money. And if you don't make money, you can't live a certain kind of way. If you can't live a certain kind of way, then you are in poverty. Like there's no other way to shape this.
yeah,
So that didn't resonate with my spirit. It seems like it's similar for you, and creating a platform for yourself to create and also provide, and it's not just a monetary thing. It's you also being able to provide for your mental health and, your years of dedication of sitting behind your instrument. It can't just be for an artist, right? It can't just be for
absolutely.
that. It
Yeah,
has to be for something else that you can say, I did this. And it's not just the stake in the ground of it's, well, when that 2-day shoot is over, I have nothing else to go home to, right? I have nothing else to create. And dude, so respect for you, man. And now that you've pivoted, how are you navigating this space of creating your content? Because I was talking to Izzy and she has a way of doing certain things. And I'm always so curious because y'all are in a world that I never really considered to take seriously, but it is a lane, and it is a lane that is doing
yeah,
well.
absolutely.
So how are you creating that? I know you mentioned you're writing your scripts, you're setting up your cameras and things like that. Actually, you know what? I'm more curious about this. What was the beginning phases for you? Because you had to start, right? You didn't have the
Sure.
perfect camera set up. You didn't have the perfect microphone set up. You didn't know all the stuff. What was that starting point for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I can answer that. No, there's something you just said though that I love that I wanted to respond to, but like now it's slipping my mind because I'm thinking about the question.
Yeah,
But
go
you
back
said,
to it if you want.
oh, what is it you just said about? You said
Izzy,
to Izzy, and then what did you say just after that?
she has her own way of like creating her content.
Gotcha. It'll come back to
Okay,
me.
yeah, feel
Something you
free.
said struck me, but I can't remember what it is now. Um, yeah. So I had an interest in like filmmaking and visual media. Like I had grown up wanting to actually be a director. Like I wanted to be George Lucas and go to USC or NYU and um,
Wow.
make films and like had tried to do. Yeah, I made like little home movies when I was a kid and like with a camcorder and knew my way around like an iPhone and all that back home. And then when I moved to LA, but when it came to making content, that was, I mean, funnily enough, like not to harp on it, but like to bring it full circle to like OCD and like the personal work.
Yeah.
Um, having perfectionism, it was really tough to start in this new medium, which was very raw and unpolished.
Yeah.
If you're going back to 2018, 19, 20, 2020, short form was the anti YouTube at that time. It was like anti Netflix, anti YouTube. It was supposed to be raw. It was supposed to be gritty and authentic and relatable and a little messy. And to be honest, I think that actually helped me. The fact that now there was this opportunity to do something that was, you know, um, a little more forgiving as far as the production value. So it was actually easier for
Sure.
me to just jump in and start versus feeling like you said, you have to have the perfect camera, the perfect lighting, the perfect setup. It's like, no, you can have an iPhone and like literally just an iPhone.
Yeah.
And you could make something that could touch millions of people. And I think that, that made it easier for me to dive in. So, when I started, it was pretty much just that. Like I had my phone and I think I had like a ring light that I got off Amazon for like $30.
Great.
And that was pretty much it. And I didn't really invest in anything, better until, maybe like 4 to 6 months into doing content when it had started to kind of shape into something that I realized I could have growth there. And I was like, all right, I'll get like a microphone and like some other stuff that'll help me do this.
So
but
you just started. You're like, I'm just going to start.
Literally just started. And I will say the same to anyone who wants to make content is like, just make the video.
Wow.
Just make the video and post the video, because guess what? Then you'll make the next video.
Yeah.
And then the first one won't really matter. And then you'll make the next one and the second one. It's like, I think the thing about content that's really cool is that because it has a short lifespan for vertical content, it has a shorter lifespan. It's like, yeah, great. Like, make the video, post it. If it does well, great. Make a follow-up, or like, make it a series or something. If it flops, like, great. You'll have another video out in 24 hours. Like,
Right,
really not a big deal. Versus like, I don't know, if you're a director and you make a film every 4 years and the film flops, it's like, oh, like,
yeah,
wow.
that's rough.
Years and years of my life into that. It's like, it's not this, with content, it's a lot more forgiving. It's like, there's no reason to not just go for it.
Absolutely. When you first got started though, I'm assuming like everybody else, including myself, no one cared. What kept you going? Right? Because it's not easy when you make a video and there's 5 people that watched it and the only person that commented was your mom, or you might have shouted out to your family group chat and then they watched the video to help you, right? We all go through these types of things.
Hey, all of that matters though. All of that matters. I had a music teacher in New Jersey that was like, he would like, we'd do shows and we'd have to sell tickets or whatever, like locally. And he's like, no one cares about your band but your mom. Like that was like the first lesson. It's like, nobody cares but your mom. So you got to make other people care.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say, for me, I definitely experienced quick growth. So I don't want to like, speak from a place of, I don't want to say like, just keep going or whatever. And then it's like, years of grinding and disappointment and like trying to make something work there. Like, I was fortunate, I think, to come into, get on TikTok at a time when TikTok was just getting so much attention and there was a real demand and supply shortage for quality content around expertise. So like the, TikTok at the time, I'm sure you remember, like it had been Musically, it was all about like lip syncing and dance trends. And it was like, not like you said, that wasn't really taken very seriously.
Yeah.
And there was definitely a concerted push to like, bring more valuable content to the platform in terms of like education and, sharing skills and expertise and knowledge. And I think I was like a right place, right time thing for me.
Sure.
Where I had spent years in media, music, TV, etc. And then had this opportunity to share that experience and that knowledge and that skill set, the expertise that I had cultivated from doing the work, with people who genuinely were hungry for it, who had no idea how our world works.
Yeah.
Which is something I think maybe we tend to take for granted when it comes to like sharing our experience, and why I would encourage people to, still make content and still create and share your experience and your knowledge, because one, everything that needs to be said has already been said, but nobody was listening. So it needs to be said again.
Yeah.
So remember that, and, things go in cycles where like, things will become so old that people think they're new, genres and styles and things like that. On the other hand, you have, knowledge that maybe becomes common knowledge for one generation that the next generation doesn't know about.
Yeah.
So I realized quickly on TikTok that music fans genuinely had no idea like how our world worked, and the desire, like the hunger to learn about that, whether it was like how we're using in-ears and like what per diems are and how we, what a load in is and like how we do a sound check and, why I bring 2 identical guitars on a tour, or like how wireless rigs work and why, why Ariana Grande couldn't hear herself at Coachella.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like people genuinely didn't know. So, I think I benefited from, coming at that, right time, right place where I was able to share that and immediately connect with like a large audience and grow that very quickly.
Yeah.
But in the, and this, I'm talking about like over the course of a few months.
Sure.
But in the first couple months, like the first 2 months before I had like my first viral video, I genuinely kept going simply because I wanted to, and I enjoyed doing it.
That's dope.
And maybe that's not like the answer people want to hear, but like it's the truth,
That's the
it's
truth.
like
Yeah.
if you enjoy it, it's fulfilling to you. It doesn't matter like how insignificant maybe it seems on paper, like if the videos are getting X amount of views and like a few comments or whatever, but like you're enjoying it, and you don't know who you might be influencing or who you might be connecting with.
Yes.
And again, it's like if you're just doing it because there's the promise of material success, you're probably going to end up disappointed, even if you achieve said success. If you love what you're doing and you happen to achieve material success through that, you'll have a much deeper sense of fulfillment.
Sure.
So as cliche as it sounds, I mean, like if you love doing it, keep doing it.
Yeah.
And if you do want to experience growth and success, then that's where the craft comes in. That's when you have to start being self-critical and course correcting and trying to grow versus, maybe just doing it as like a hobby or an outlet.
Sure.
Because that's the next part, is like actually getting good at it. Like I wasn't good at making content when I started making content.
Okay.
It's not good.
Wasn't good at all. Yeah.
It wasn't good. No, it wasn't good. And I made, to put it in perspective, I was saying, it happened in a few months for me, like the growth that I had experienced on TikTok. But I had posted 18 videos a week for the first 3 months. Like I was doing.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I made over probably like I don't know how much off the top of my head, like almost 200 videos. Before I think I had the first video that like truly went viral and like blew my account up.
That's crazy.
That's a lot of trial and error, and a lot of flops, a lot of failures, a lot of, like I said, like on to the next one. Like, I can't get hung up on this one. It's just like you keep moving. Yeah, it was like three videos a day, essentially, for like the first 3 months.
That's incredible. Like that amount of volume is nuts. But I guess at a time you had the time, right? The government gave us the time. So that was kind of nice,
Hey, but what did you do with the time? That's the question,
Right. And that's kind of a testimony to what you did. But I have a question now, because you said something about self-critical, analyzing yourself from hobby to I want to make this a profession. You now had to be critical about the content you're creating, what time you're creating it, or what time you're posting it, right? What types of things you're doing, understanding the algorithm. There's more aspects to this. What, from beginning to now, are some of the things you've had to alter with your approach, right? From posting, creating, etc.
Absolutely. Great question. A lot. It's changed so much. I mean, even in just a short time. I think starting out, like I said, the demand was so high and the supply was so low, and the standard of the content was also much lower. Like, even though TikTok is still more of an organic feel versus like, say, Instagram, where things are very polished, or YouTube, where you have higher production value, it's definitely still, the floor on content quality has, gone up.
For sure.
So there's definitely like more considerations there. Like I was making videos when I started, like I just gotten out of the shower and like my hair was wet and I was like sitting in bed just like doing a comment reply because I had posted some video about, a Pro Tool session, and someone asked a question. So instead of like typing the comment, I would just like talk to the camera for like 30 seconds. And that was like early TikTok. Like you could do that. And
that's smart though.
Yeah, and people would engage with that and respond to that. And the first thing that I learned was that like the audience dictates, the direction for me. It was pretty much from the time I had the first couple videos that did really, really well, TikTok was the first platform to add the video reply feature where you could reply to a comment with a video.
Very cool.
And so I just started to like use that nonstop. So like I would post a video, the video did maybe a couple million views and there was like 2,500 comments. That's 100 videos right there. Like that's with all of the feedback and the questions you're getting, like, but what if it's this way? And, but what another, like, in-ears, when I had started doing videos about in-ears, people were like, but why do singers take one out? Great. Next video, I would shoot that. And then people would comment on that one and there'd be more questions. And then I would answer those. And like that sustained me for a long time. And I think it taught me a lesson, which was that for the first time ever, in my creative career, so to speak, I was like meeting market demand for something versus trying to create market demand for like my art or like my thing, which is a noble pursuit. And I don't want to dismiss, artists who have to fight to create market demand for their art because it's a legitimate thing. And there are amazing artists who don't get the recognition they probably deserve.
Yep.
And there just simply is not the demand there for their art. And that's unfortunate.
Yep.
I think for me, I realized that although I enjoyed what I was creating musically in my bands and projects and things outside of like my touring work, no one asked for it, and it doesn't make it bad. It's just nobody asked for it.
Sure.
And I realized with TikTok that I had never made anything anyone asked for.
Wow.
I had never identified a need and addressed it with, call it a product, but like, a video. Right? Like I had never met that demand. And there was something super fulfilling about that because I realized that for the first time, I was using my creative gifts in a way that was like really providing value for people. And helping them to understand, how the world of music and production worked in a way that, they didn't previously know. And it was full circle for me too, because I, like I said, I grew up like I wanted to be George Lucas. I wanted to make films and I was obsessed with like special features and behind the scenes. And like, I always wanted to know how the cake was made.
Okay.
And the opportunity to like share that with, another generation or like an audience was really fulfilling. So it taught me a lesson about, commerce, but also creativity and where they can intersect and actually bring you fulfillment, help meet a need for other people, and then also bring, financial benefit.
Right. And dude, you and Izzy said a very similar thing. She doesn't decide what she posts. She's like, the market does. My following decides what I post. And you're essentially kind of saying the same thing. It's like, yeah, of course you're going to do the things you want to do in essence, because no one can force your hand. But you're also like, I'm looking at these comments and they're asking for certain things. Okay, let's make a video about it. Versus just directly engaging with one person, you're saying I could reach so many more and it could be equally beneficial. You got your answer. Other people can get the answer. And I also made content on it. So now that you've kind of understood that and you're really navigating it flawlessly, in my opinion, I love your content. And I don't play guitar. It's so interesting to me.
Never too late to start.
Bro, yes, it is for me. Like, it's not when I know people like you and Zach and Rosette. Well, for what? My friends are amazing at it. I'll just hire you guys. But now that you're creating this, right? You're not just creating and answering a question as simple as what you were saying. I got out of bed, my hair is wet, I'm all sitting on my bed. You're a lot more strategic about how you're going about creating that response to the question, right?
Exactly. And sorry, I'm realizing that was the question you asked.
Yeah, go for it, because you're probably going to answer what I'm asking. Go for it.
What changed? So I'll bring it back to that. So it definitely has changed a lot and it's become a lot more structured and regimented, only because it's had to, in order to grow and to scale, which is the challenging part, is when you reach a certain point where you do have to adapt. And I'll put it this way. When I started on TikTok, for the first time ever, I felt like I was on like the cutting edge of something.
Okay.
And I was like, whoa, I'm not like stuck in the past or like operating on an old model. Because growing up in bands and like, I came up right at that time, like the switch from like traditional, like physical product to iTunes and the streaming, where like all of the books that I read and all of the mentors that I had were like, you got to get your deal and you got to do this and you're going to, keep your publishing. And like, we had to, print our own CDs and sell them at our shows. And like that model literally did not exist by the time I was like reaching the point in my life where I could start to like operate in the music business and work.
Right.
And I felt like I was like clutching sand in my hands, being like, wait, like all this stuff that I was told matters doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And I feel like with TikTok, for the first time, I was like, oh, wait, but like, okay, this is right here, right now.
Okay.
And I'm like a part of it. And I would say within like 2 years after starting, I was like, oh my God, I'm a dinosaur. I'm out of touch. You know what I mean? Like, it's changed so fast. You're like, wait, like, am I still like, close to the trends? Do I have my finger on the pulse of what's happening? And that's where you have to be willing to tear down and build up again. It comes back to doing those uncomfortable things and taking those risks, is like the problem with success is that now you have something to lose.
Yeah.
Right. But if you continue to do the same thing exactly the way you're doing it, you will lose.
You will lose.
It's like guaranteed that you will lose because you're not adapting. And the irony is that like in an effort to feel comfortable, we will try to, cling to something.
Yep.
And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're like, well, we don't want to lose the thing, but like if we don't adapt and change, we're going to lose it. Like it's just how it's going to happen. So I realized that I realized that there was things that series that I had that were running for a long time that I loved creating that just like we're not getting the traction anymore. Like it had run its course. People had enough of like that series or that topic that I was, doing things on. And, I had to have kind of a whole rebrand and like a rebuild in like 2023, I think is like when I kicked off a lot of the series that I still have running now.
Okay.
Which is, great, like to have them, going strong after 3 years, but like pretty much all of the series and all of the content that I made, like my first 2 or 3 years on TikTok and Reels and Shorts, like they're all defunct at this point. Like they, I did what I could do with them and that's great. But at some point I had to change it up. And, part of that was in the trade, in the craft. You asked like, what's different? It's like, yes, I did, you do start to notice that other people's camera quality is getting better. There's like, a new iPhone, or like people are switching to using these Sony cameras, or like you're starting to see a certain, color grading thing happening, or like, lighting's getting better in videos. And it's like, you have to adapt and you have to compete. I benefited from being, coming in at a point where the floor was still low and there was just like a high demand and low supply of quality content, but then people catch up.
Right.
And you have to, adapt to that and be willing to, let go maybe of some of the things that were working before to discover what's going to work next. So that's been
dope.
like the biggest shift.
I could definitely see that. And that's, you can go on Amazon right now and get a content creator like package, that didn't exist. Yeah. Like it just didn't exist 3 years ago. I never remember seeing that on like a trending anything. That just wasn't a thing. So now that you've shifted now and you're being a lot more intentional about what you're posting. And I know you're saying that the market kind of controls what you're posting and the content you're doing, but you're still doing it in your way. You have a very distinct way of approaching your content. And what is that for you? I know what I see and I know what I'm guessing, but you're the one. I don't have to guess anymore. I can ask. So what is the thing for you when you're like, okay, let's say this topic is talking about in-ears. How are you developing the script? What are you trying to say about in-ears? Or are you saying, okay, I can possibly make a series out of this, or kind of see all the above?
Great question. I will say that ultimately the story is what matters. And despite all of the, like, just to mention, like you were saying about the content creation, like toolkit idea, right? Like I could have the best gear and I could like be keeping up technologically with everyone else. But like, if the content's bad, like at like the source, then it's bad. Like no amount of production is going to save a bad story or an out of touch topic or something that's like poorly explained, or a put on, right? Like something that doesn't connect with people.
Yeah.
So I only say that because I don't want people to think that they have to have, you know, have to have all this nice stuff or like expensive camera gear or lighting or audio equipment.
Right.
That doesn't make something good. I see videos all the time that are like not the greatest production value, but the story is so damn good.
Yep.
You know, like the content itself is so good that I'm invested, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what you need for buy-in. I think we're past the point of like simply having like, you know, back in like 2010 on YouTube, like if you had a music video and you had a drone shot in the video, you were going to get 100,000 views on it.
Right.
You had a drone shot. It was like, whoa, right? Like technology. Now it's like, you know, anyone could do, you don't even need a drone. You could just make it with AI. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like it's whatever. It's like no one cares about that. Like the quality is not indicative of the creative integrity of the piece. But you know, what's changed for me and what I have to focus on now, and like Maria, my fiance, who also helps with, you know, the logistical and the business side of content with me, is super helpful. I have to give like all credit where credit is due. Like
she's amazing.
She has the logistics brain. I have the creative brain. You know, I execute. I'm very good at like taking action, and she's really good at like big picture creative thinking and then like planning those things logistically.
Love that.
So I don't ever set out, until recently, I never set out to create series. They just happened because I had one video that did well on that topic. And then there was like a bunch of comments that were like, what about this and do more of this? Like, the tone matching series that I still have now, that's like one of my longest running series, just started
I
because
love that series.
Thank you.
Love that series.
Somebody just commented and asked, they were like, how to sound. Oh God, I can't remember if the first episode was Brian May or if it was Dimebag Darrell from Pantera, but like somebody had commented on, okay, I think I'm remembering, and I could be wrong. I think I'm remembering. So someone had mentioned that Brian May used the 6 pence coin to play guitar. So I like bought one from the 50s, like a 50s like British 6 pence coin, and like did a demo like on it to see like how it sounded and like share about it.
Yeah.
And then I made like the tone video of like, well, how to get the Brian May sound with the coin. And someone was like, okay, now do Dimebag Darrell, now do Metallica, now do Mark Knopfler, now do Kurt Cobain, now do Jimi Hendrix, now do, and it just, you know, I think we're at like 60 something episodes now. It just like went on and on and on. And that's just become like a wellspring of content because, you know, the audience decided, right? Like I didn't decide that was, if that video flopped, that first one flopped, I mean, I don't know if I would have made another one. I don't even know if I would have thought to make another one in that series. Like, I don't know better than the audience, you know, and I have to be like grateful to the audience for validating that this was a good idea and going like, hey, we love this. We want more of this thing. It's not like my ideas are the best ideas, you know, they arguably have better ideas than me.
All the time.
So yeah, so that was kind of the genesis of that. Now though, you know, like alongside Maria and, you know, with what we're doing, as far as like planning and how we work on the content now, like we do definitely make concerted efforts to create series or create content that could easily become a series. It actually is a little more intentional, because, you know, we tie it into other things and launches and digital products and other stuff that's happening. So, you know, things that tie into the bigger picture.
Yep.
But again, like if it flops, then it flops, and we're gonna go back to the drawing board and come up with a different idea, you know?
Right. And that's honest and fair, you know, like to be willing to pivot whenever you need to. But I think that's really dope that you guys are one phenomenal duo, by the way. Like had the best time hanging out with both of you all. Like it's incredible. And
likewise, man. Come, yeah, we got to hang again soon.
Absolutely, would love that. And then so now when you're making this content, right? You're saying this. Let's just use the tone matching series because I love it. when you go through this, are you writing scripts? Are you thinking about, okay, I have to get the specific thing? Am I showcasing? Like, how are you going about like generating that type of that video?
Yeah. So I start always with a script. It's really important to have a script if you want your content to feel produced. If you don't want it to feel produced, you can just do bullet points and then
Mm,
like kind of talk out the bullet points, but don't like script all of it. And that'll make it feel like a little looser. But it's kind of similar to like making charts, giving yourself like a guide. Um, for the tone matches, it does require a bit of research and like digging for me. Um, the big thing is always like trusting your ears and not your eyes. A lot of
mm,
people get carried away with like, okay, but like, I can look up the amps and the pedals and the pickups and the different things that the person's using, which is certainly a part of the research, and that's totally fine. Like, yeah, like let's start there. Like
sure.
what pickups did you know George Harrison have in that Epiphone guitar, and what amps were they using at the time, or that's definitely a helpful starting point. But any platform you're using, whether it's like a full analog rig, tube amps and pedals, or if you're using a floor modeler or plugins or a practice amp and an app or a hybrid rig, they're all going to respond differently. And things are going to respond differently based on your guitar, based on your touch and all these things.
Yeah.
Um, so I have to kind of give people suggestions that they can then use to dial in the tone themselves. So I try to keep the scripts, informative, but also encourage people to trust their ears and not their eyes. Like, just because, Eddie Van Halen made the Marshall sound this way doesn't mean that like your Marshall might sound this way. And if these EQ settings don't sound the way that you want them to sound, or they're not accurate to the tone, then change the settings. Like,
Yeah. Change it.
they're
Yes.
just
Yep.
guidelines. So I tend to do that. As far as the scripting is like, have the research, but also you have to bring your own anecdotes to it. You have to bring your own knowledge and your expertise. And then I usually bulk up on the scripts. Like, I batch write scripts, say 5 to 10 scripts across multiple series or different one-off videos. I'll have all of those in a document, and then I'll do like a dedicated shoot day once a week where I do the talking shots, and like that's the talking headshots. So that's why I
Yeah.
like read the script, and I'll do like 5 to 10 videos, and then I'll do another dedicated shoot day that's like just insert shots. So that's like the close-ups, the screen recordings, the guitar shots, or the cutaways to the products or whatever it is. Um, and then I usually have like 8 to 10 videos that are in production at any time that like are shot and in the bag. And then I'll just be editing those like, as they come out. So it's
Love.
pretty, it's pretty streamlined and pretty organized.
You gotta be if you're doing that amount of content, like you're batching, bro.
Yeah,
Batching is the cheat code, by the way. Anybody who
you got
thinks
to
that
do
they're
it. Yeah.
you have to do it. Like, yes, you have to do it. There's no other way around it because you just won't be able to find the
Is that how
time.
do you batch your content as well?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. Just because life happens and sometimes you're not able to get in front of the camera. Sometimes I'm not able to do an interview. Sometimes I'm not able to go
exactly.
down and you just don't have the time, right? Because your dog is sick or you're sick or, maybe you got a wedding to go to. It doesn't have to be sad, but life is just going to occur. So I've noticed that when I was trying to do it, like, all right, every day I'm just going to shoot a video. Yeah. But then what happens when you miss? Then now you're days behind.
Yeah. It's a good
So
goal to have, like if you're trying to get into the flow, like, yeah, shoot a video every day. But if you're trying to produce content at scale and it is a business, then like you have to treat it as such. Like you have to
right.
have, call it inventory. You're
Yeah.
like, I need to have inventory now for my product, which are my videos. Cause like you said, like life
Right.
happens, like you get called to go on the road, or you get, you're doing a fly date, or something personal comes up, and it's like, you have to be consistent and like continue to deliver your product. You don't always necessarily have the, ability to set everything up and film. So definitely like building in some insurance is very important to stay consistent.
I think it's also trust. One of the things I had a reaction channel. I still have it. I need to get back on it, but my reaction channel was the thing that did the best at first. Like it still has like 50K on YouTube. So,
nice.
But I learned that people, they were entertained, but they trusted that they were going to get something from me every day. It wasn't just I don't know when he's going to post. I don't know when they were trusting that I was being honest with my delivery. I was never sugarcoating it. And that's something I noticed that you said too, not the word trust, but you're saying, trust your ears. Guys, yes, I'm telling you what they used from my research, but also trust your ears. People can trust that from you, right? They're not just saying, do this, buy this, buy this, buy this. Yeah. You're not a salesman. You're saying, listen, this is what I found. This is the tone I was able to get. But like, if it doesn't work for you, kind of trust yourself, trust your ears. And I think your audience has that trust for you. Also, your audience will start trusting you when you're consistent, right? Because let's remove the audience. It's like when you tell your mom and your dad, I want to do something new. At first, they're like, all right, yeah, cool, sounds good. But they kind of don't believe you, right? They only start believing you after the years of consistency and dedication attached. They're like, oh, okay, you're actually really doing this. And then they buy into it.
And think about the investment that comes with that too. Like, you get a new sport or a new hobby or something and you're like, I need this $600 guitar. And they're like, well, let's see. Because maybe 2 months from now, then you move on to hockey or something. And it's like, it's the same deal, like it's the buy-in comes from the dedication and the consistency, showing up, like showing up consistently and being dedicated.
And I think that's amazing that you're doing that directly or indirectly. That is what's happening for you. You're putting out the content very consistently, and you're also being honest with your delivery. But you also recognized from early on to now, you've had to pivot. You've had to polish your videos. You've had to polish your audio. You've had to polish your delivery. And bro, your content to me is very concise and clean, right? I love it from a production standpoint that I can appreciate, but also when I watch it, not being a guitarist, I get it. I can't do it, but I get it, right?
That's good to hear. Yeah. Thank you.
It just makes sense. You're like, no, these pedals do this. This happens here. This is the tone. This is where you were in the fret. Okay, I might not be able to execute it, but I understand it. And to me, that is a testimony to how excellent you are at it. From beginning phases to now, being able to deliver that message to someone who is ignorant in its true sense of the word. Well done. So I'm always curious.
Thank you very much. That's a high compliment, Jarvis. Thank you.
Oh man, it's just honest. And because I think you're honest with it. And I think for you, man, I'm always just curious what got people there. And I appreciate you sharing. I genuinely appreciate when your transparency of the mental, the transparency of, the OCD, the transparency of kind of how you shifted to this realm. It wasn't someone saying, hey man, I think you'd be good at this. It was like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I got to kind of bet on myself right now. So let's just try this. And then also shout out to your fiance for being like, got you, bro. Let's get to it. And I think that's something too 100%. Where I would love if you would talk about this, because I'm team musician 100%. And it doesn't mean I'm anti-management or anti-artist, but we come from the cloth of musician. And one of the things that I've noticed with our peers is that we've struggled with the relationship aspect. And you, I would say, as of right now, is very successful with your relationship. You have a fiance who is ultra supportive, and she's phenomenal. I've had the privilege of hanging with her, and we've worked together on UE. But how is that dynamic, right? Because you're gone. You're creating a lot, you're doing a lot. It requires you to work 8-12 hours days, editing, batching content. How is that dynamic, right? How did you get to a point where it's like, she trusts you, she believes in you, she's down to support it? What types of things did you guys have to do to get to that space?
Now that's the question of the day.
Yes.
Actually, that's my favorite question you've asked today.
Love it.
And I want to answer it thoughtfully. I did want to mention this actually, like, everything we've discussed, like, only happens with a community. And, you are only as successful as the strength of your community, in the sense that, like, I couldn't have done any of these things without without Maria, without, our family, without my therapist, without my mentors and, my friends and connections in the music business who I was able to use as a sounding board and, get support and feedback from personally, professionally, what have you. Like, the strength of those relationships is ultimately what makes something great. So, like, if you are great at anything, it's because you have great people in your life.
Yeah.
Very few good things, if any, happen in a vacuum. I guess, like, Igor Stravinsky technically, like, grew up isolated and had, like, never actually heard music and just, like, learned music out of books and created a whole new genre of like 20th century classical music. But maybe that's the
Right.
only example of anything in a vacuum that has ever been, like, amazing and, like, groundbreaking. Like, anything and everything is like it comes from, your peer group, your relationships, friends, family, and the things that are going to, like you said, be there when you come home.
Yeah.
And, for Maria and I, she gets it. She has a creative background as a dancer. Like, she danced with Roger Waters on the Wall tour when she was, like, a teenager, beat me to the arena level,
Yeah.
which is sick. So, she gets it. She understands the creative spark and the drive to create. And, we both want the same things ultimately in life. And I think that's important, is, like, sharing a common vision and goals for what the future can be, and the present, like how your relationship's going to function, and, like, um you know letting her set the tone, honestly, as far as, like, what, how that looks like. If I'm going to have, if I'm going to be away for a while, or if I'm going to, have these long work days and she has to take on a little more, of something, or, like, show up in another way, and support us in that way. Or if, like, she's preoccupied with the project and I kind of have to step it up a little more and make sure that, like, our home life is rolling.
Yeah.
All these things matter. And, you have to be willing to, like I said, with everything else, it's just like, do the hard things, like communicate, be honest, even when it hurts, like, nothing feels better than having, like, an open flow of communication and honesty with anyone, with
Yeah.
yourself, with your peers, with your partner. And, you do have to, like, face adversity together. And, like I said, like, through that challenge is when, like, the surprising things happen, and, like, the relationship can blossom, and also you can experience, abundance as a couple.
Yeah.
So I think for us, like, determination, having common goals, and, like, a shared vision for, like, what our life can look like. And then also just, like, giving each other patience. Um, I think it's probably a cliche, but, like, it's really the truth. Like, I
Right.
know I'm fully self-aware that, like, when I'm in the zone, I'm a mess. Like, I wouldn't want to be around me, like, I'm very chaotic and, like, very
Yeah.
preoccupied. And, like, if I'm deep in a project, or, like, I'm shooting all day, then I fly out to LA for 2 weeks and I'm on set, and like, and then I come back, and, like, I have to catch up on other things at home. And it's like, sometimes weeks at a time, like, feeling burnt out or whatever. And it's like, I know that has an impact on her,
Yeah.
and I have to be I have to take full ownership over that. I need to do my best to show up, and not be a jerk, and, like, regulate
Yeah.
and take care of myself and make sure that I'm still showing up no matter what. Cause there's no excuse for, like, being a shitty partner. You can be
Facts.
tired, and you can be overwhelmed and overworked, or you could be going through a funk or, like, something, right?
Yep.
Um,
Could be
and
human.
literally, yeah, literally all it takes sometimes is just being like, "Hey, I'm having a tough week. Like, I appreciate you being here," or, like, "Thank you for your patience with me this week." Like, just be nice. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like and it's a learning, it's a learning process. Like it wasn't always that way for us. Like we had to figure it out together because believe it or not, like this is our first time doing life, all of us. Like
Yeah.
this is our first time doing this.
Yeah. Yep.
So you you
Yep.
do have to like
Yep.
learn from your experiences. And it wasn't always easy, but I just have to commend like her strength and patience for like, allowing me to grow, empowering me to grow, and also like offering me that love and understanding to, pushing me to be the best version of myself individually, professionally, creatively, and then also, as a partner in the relationship. That's a gift. Like if you have a partner who's willing to, is going to illuminate the best in you, but then also like, draw out of you maybe what you didn't know you had in yourself. Like that there's nothing else that I would want out of the person that I'm with.
Eesh.
Some people
Phenomenal
don't
answer.
want that. Some people are like, that sounds like too much work. And you know what? Maybe it is, but to me, I'm down. I'm like, let's do it. I want to, I want to surprise myself. So if I'm with somebody
Yeah.
who can see something in me that I don't necessarily see in myself, that's what I value that because it forces me to be more honest and it forces me to always, want to be better. So
The
I
risk versus
appreciate
reward. That's a massive testimony to not just you, but also her and the partnership and community you guys have generated in your home. And it's not easy. But the fact that you both were willing to be active participants in the life that you guys said you wanted, massive. And I think there's a gem that you dropped that a lot of people may or may not have missed, but I want to reiterate this point. You guys are dreaming the same dream. You are on a different planet than she is, and you're wondering why it's not working. You both are very much so aligned with the dream. Now I want to ask you this. Do you guys still have different hobbies?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, we
And I
do.
want that
Yeah.
to be known because I feel like I find myself in conversations where people are like, well, you don't do this with your partner. You don't do this. Do I have to? I show interest in it and I will show up from time to time, but I also not expecting my lady to sit behind
Yeah.
a damn keyboard all day.
No, I
you
mean, like,
know?
yeah, be an individual is great. Like, we have our own interests. I have things that I like to do. She has things she likes to do. And then there's the things where we come together. And I was going to say this too. It's like, we know how to play together. And that's an important part of a relationship.
Mm,
Um, couples that play together stay together. And I mean play, I'm saying you could literally be playing. Like we like to rock like co-op games on Xbox together, and like she's gotten really into football along with me, and like we'll watch games during the season, and she keeps up on the news and like shares. She's probably more like kept up on NFL than me. She's like, babe, did you hear? Like,
yeah, yeah.
Bengals traded. Um, but it's important to have your own identity, but then to be able to come together and play together and keep that whimsy that in the relationship, but then also know when each other needs some space, or there's something like she's into that like might not be my thing, but to still show interest in that. She shows a ton of interest in the things that I like that I know she doesn't give a damn about.
Right.
So
Yeah.
makes me feel very very seen when I'm
Yeah.
like, I watched this documentary on Discovery Channel last night. Let me tell you about like the different materials they tried to make light bulbs out of before they discovered tungsten and like
Right.
yeah. So that's a big part of it. Actually, I'll tell you a story about God. It just sounds so New Jersey there, like my aunts
I
and uncle.
love
Let
it.
me tell
Go
you.
for it.
I'll tell you a story about kind of like it kind of brings everything together. So when the content thing like initially had like really taken off for me,
Mhm.
to the point where like there was actually like real money coming in that could at the time for the time being could like replace or supplement other work. I had this tour, this offer for a tour that I was unsure about. It was like a C market arena run. I felt like obligated to take it because the 14-year-old Dre would never say no to that,
Sure.
And I remember Maria adamantly telling me not to do it, being like, do not take this run. It's not a good run. Like, the money's not great. It's like, you are blossoming with the video thing. You're developing this whole new thing. People, trust you. It's not beneath you, but it's not like, it's not aligned with what you're doing now. And it's like not a good fit. And I like went to my therapist and I was like talking to my therapist about it. And I remember being like pissed, right? I was like,
yeah.
God, like, I feel controlled maybe. Like, this is what she wants. It's not what I want. Like, she doesn't want me to go on the tour because, I'll be gone for 5 weeks, and it's like, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, now I underestimated her in that, selfishly, thinking that like she would want anything but the best for me. If that was an awesome tour, Maria would have been like, you go.
Right.
Like, go do the thing. Right. And I remember like talking to my therapist about it. And like, it was one of those moments, to be honest, kind of that I was referencing earlier, when I was like embracing doubt and like not having certainty and not knowing. Like, I still did not know if it was the right decision not to take it. And I turned it down. And I, trusted Maria that, maybe this was not the right opportunity for me at that time, and that my time would be better spent nurturing the thing that I was growing, that I had the opportunity to do with the content, and trust that other opportunities would come. This wasn't the last thing I would ever be offered to do, and it wasn't going to be the end of the world if I turned something down, because sometimes a no is a yes, right? So this was like, I was saying no to this, but I'm saying yes to this. And I am so glad I listened to her. I'm so glad that I, trusted her and like, and went down that path, because it ultimately was the best decision. But that's the nuance of navigating your relationship, but also in the business space, where it's like, having to trust sometimes and have faith, even when you have doubts, and, knowing how to, intuitively learn. This is part of like emotional maturity, but like, intuitively learning how to navigate through that nuance and that subtlety, and like understand, because the lesson I learned there was that like, this person loves you. They want you to succeed, and they want what's best for you. I'm free to make my own decision at the end of the day. I can't resent Maria for being like, don't take that run. Maybe it's not the right thing. I made the choice.
Sure.
But, being able to navigate that and understand that like, this comes from a place of love, care, and support. I trust this person. I'm going to take their feedback to heart and know that that's genuine. And if that's not the case, I don't know,
Right.
To me, that wouldn't be a viable relationship if that wasn't the case.
Like, why is she here then?
So yeah. So that's kind of, proof is in the pudding. Like,
I love that.
That's a good example of sometimes what it takes to, trust and let someone help you to surprise yourself. The theme of the
whole theme, right? Dude, thank you for sharing that. And I hope people, musicians and people in the entertainment industry, start navigating that similarly. And it doesn't have to be the exact, because no one's story is the same. But taking into consideration some people that may love you, that may be able to look at things a little more objectively than you, because you do have that 14-year-old self that is still there in your brain saying, you're never going to get another call, but that's not true. If you stay true to, and I'm not saying stay true to yourself on the selfish standpoint that we oftentimes hear now, but stay true to what you actually want to do, and allow yourself to surprise yourself, allow yourself to pivot in a way that you may not be familiar with. But at the end of the day, it worked out for you, and it's continuously working out for you, so much so that you have 2 places to live. You have a gorgeous fiance. You're living a life that allows you to sit behind your instrument and make a living. And there's not many of us out here that can say that. So well done.
Thank you. I appreciate
Well
it.
done. And I hope people start understanding more of that, and not just, the relationship aspect, but every part of the journey that you went through of being stripped away from opportunities, going down to that depressive, like, okay, this isn't good. I'm not okay. Like, I need help. You've mentioned your therapist multiple times, knowing that therapy is okay. A lot of things you said there, man, I hope people internalize and take a fragment of it. It doesn't have to be Dre's story, but if you could take one little gem that he said, even just, all right, I'm going to start batching my content because I'm struggling. Great. You won. So dude, thank you so much for just taking the time today, man. This is why I wanted to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm happy to share. You had great questions, and I mean, you're such a killer player, man, and love what you're doing as well.
My guy. Well, thank you so much, man. What's next for you, and where can people find you if they want to tap into your content, or if they want to just be involved with you at all? Like, where are some places they can find you?
Yeah, obviously on all the social channels, it's just at Dre DiMura. And then I'll have some digital courses that are going to be coming soon. I don't know when this will come out, but I'm actually doing pre-pro this week and then shooting next week a new tone matching course that's going to teach my process and help people to start matching tones on their own and kind of break everything down at like a beginner level to intermediate, and then some other stuff in the pipeline also. And yeah, you can connect with me on socials or on my website too. You can sign up for my email list and you'll get like a free pedal guide that'll like break down how to use like 13 common guitar pedals, and then get offers and stuff for future courses and other community activations, etc.
I'm excited for your course. That's so
See,
dope.
It's never too late to start, Jarvis. This could be your end.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna send it to all my guitarists that I hate their tone. Go watch this now.
Not Zach. No. Zach is immune.
He is perfect.
His tone is immaculate.
I don't get it. Like how good he is at just tone. It's
because he's a big Eric Johnson fan. I'm telling you. I figured it out when so Maria is like, so I posted like this video. Sorry. Maria saw this video of like Zach playing for Tate. Or no, when we went to see you guys.
Yeah.
She was like, why does her tone sound like that? And I was like what? She's like, good. And I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, I don't know. Sometimes like when you do your playthroughs, it's like, it's got like this thing or whatever. And I'm like, excuse me.
Yeah.
And
what?
You're like all hype on like Zach's tone. And was like, then like looking at clips one night at like midnight before we went to bed. I'm like getting into bed to go to sleep, and she's like just playing these clips, and she's like, you see like that sound? It's that sound. And I was pissed. I was like, what do you mean? Like you like Zach's tone over mine?
Yeah,
like,
what do you mean?
That is a great tone, right? But I'm like, I think my tone's okay too. And right. But then like I end up sleeping on it. I wake up and I'm like, shit.
Yep.
I think I have some room for improvement.
Yep.
I think Maria's right because she has great taste. And I know that she's like a no bullshit person. Yep. She has great taste. Maybe I need to go back to the drawing board. And I literally had my neighbor, Brandon, he's a touring guitar player. And, I had him over. I was like, bro, come over. I got this new amp. I was like, we're going to dial in this sound. I gotta get this tone. And he came over and we spent like an hour and a half, like trying to match Zach's tone. And I finally got it. And then I was like, Maria, like, come listen to this. And she comes in, she's like, all right. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. I was like, okay, pretty good for Maria's like, we got it. That's how I knew. And it's so funny. And then I went out, I was in LA hanging out with Zach, and he was just playing Eric Johnson the entire time.
Yep.
And I realized, I was like, oh, wait, it's just the Eric Johnson tone. And then I like went back and looked at the sound we dialed in, and I was like, this is the EJ tone. Like that's like his whole blueprint for like his lead guitar sound, where you have like that really nice, like blooming mid range, and like, it's like really like not too much high end.
It's perfect.
And it just sounds very vocal and like very syrupy and like warm and digestible, which is why I realized I was like, Maria's not a guitar player. She doesn't care about like how the tone is made or what, the Klon does, or like why there's this, bright cap on my 50s wiring Les Paul that puts a little more sizzle on like the 4 to 5K range. Like she just, if it sounds good, it is good. So she's saying, hey, like this sounds good. And I realized that like that matters. Like we were saying before, it's like the audience decides, right? It's like she's saying like, hey, like this sounds really good to me as someone who's not a guitar player.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like this is palatable to me. I enjoy the way this sounds.
Yep.
And I was very grateful for that. Although the first night I was not very happy.
lost a couple hours of sleep over that, huh?
Lost a few hours of sleep, but it was well worth it. And I have to give kudos to Zach for the inspo because he's got such a good lead tone.
Yeah, he's just perfect. And yeah, he just gets it, man. It's the only way I can describe that guy. He just gets it. There's nothing that we've thrown at him that he hasn't been able to do. Like, I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
And bro, we threw some stuff at him recently, and Zach, you're probably gonna watch this, so
he's gonna get a Google alert when this gets posted.
Exactly. We're gonna big him up some more, but we just didn't finish the project, and I literally watched the MD say, "All right, cool. This is what we're doing." He navigated the band, and then Zach, you know what to do, and he just took off like full solo, perfect tone, right note choices. So much so, I watched the entire room stop what they were doing in production rehearsals and watch this happen. He's different.
He's different. And you know what? It's the attention to detail. And and that's what it is with any craft, but it's like having that attention to detail. I realized when I had him over, we did some videos together after the show. Yeah. And I asked him to break down like what is like the go-to like your like go-to arena pop lick for like your solo spot. Like what's like the lick that you bust out? And he played like the lick that he played in like the, you know, each night with Tate.
Yeah.
And I don't think he like otherwise would care to share these things until he's prompted. But like the minute I asked him, he like knew intentionally like why he made this choice and why this was effective. And he could explain it so eloquently. Again, he's not very loud about it. Like he doesn't talk about it normally. Like I never heard him just bring it up. No. But like the minute I prompted him, you could tell how much thought he had put in to, you know, in an arena context, the notes can get lost a little bit. So you have to make sure that if you play something fast, you have to play it twice so that it's repeatable and that people would recognize it and like latch onto it. So like that's the reason like I put this like at that point in the solo for this venue.
Of course.
And I was like, that is so good. Like that's what masters think about. He's little details.
Zach, we love you, bro. Like, cheers to my boy Zach, man, because he's.
I'm hyping him up for his episode coming up. You know, you'll have some follow-up questions now for Zach's episode.
Hell yeah, man! But it's just all just a way to get to the end result, and you have also a way, and you're putting it in an educational way that's also entertaining. You know, because it allows me to look at it, and bro, I've watched some of your videos, and I've been able to talk to other guitarists that I might be, you know, MDing with, or I'm sitting with, and I need to do certain things with, not Zach, and be like, yo, can you do this thing? You know, and because of your videos, I can say, oh, the delay should be this point, or okay, that distortion is too much of this, try it this way.
Wow. That's awesome, man. That's crazy.
But it's just well done. So once I can digest it, I can at least articulate it. You know, and that's always my goal. I want the people that I might be leading or being bandmates with that I can speak their language. And I also want them to speak my language. You know, if it's a Phil, you know, they're like, hey, man, I want more of a Phil Collins Phil, you know, or I need more of an Aaron Spears kind of vibe, or take more of a Dave Weckl fusion kind of approach. If you can say that and you know that I've done my homework, and to your point, attention to detail, it matters. So you breaking that stuff down, it's not just helpful for guitarists. It's helpful for anyone.
That's amazing to hear, man. Thank you.
It's phenomenal, man. So
hugely important. Speaking the language of your collaborators is like, whether you're on a film set or in the studio or on a gig, like, you know, the better you can communicate with your collaborators, the better for you. Like the more wealth of experience and knowledge you have, because not only does it help you communicate your ideas and what you need, but it shows respect. You're showing respect to your collaborators that like, I am clued into what you're doing. I've taken the time to understand your job or your role, and I'm able to communicate with you in a way that you'll understand that'll be effective.
Right. And you don't have to be an expert at it, but just be able to communicate the ideas well enough that the expert can then take it and, I get it. Cool. We move this way with it.
And at the end of the day, we all know that it just comes down to like, hey, like at the end of bar 4, I need you to do a fill that's like, like it's
that's it.
That's the language.
It's so true, man. Well, Dre, thank you again for being here, man. It's refreshing to see your face, refreshing to talk to you again. And truly, thank you for being on the show, man. Thank you so much.
Likewise, man. Always good to connect with you.
My
excited
boy.
to see you around soon. Best of luck on the road.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks, everybody.